My roommate kept eating my food despite my labels and warnings. My creative solution made him move out overnight. I, 25 had been living in a 2-bedroom apartment for almost a year when my previous roommate announced he was moving across the country for a job opportunity. That left me scrambling to find someone to split the rent. After interviewing a few candidates, I settled on a guy who seemed normal enough. He had a steady job in IT, decent references, and we got along well during our initial meeting. Little did I know I was inviting a nightmare into my home. The first week went smoothly. We established some basic house rules, split the chores, and generally kept to ourselves. I work long shifts at the hospital, so I'm usually gone for 12 to 14 hours at a time. That's when I noticed food starting to disappear from my section of the fridge. At first, it was small things. A few slices of cheese missing, some lunch meat that seemed lighter than I remembered, a yogurt or two vanishing. I figured maybe I had miscounted or forgotten what I'd eaten. But then I prepared 3 meal prep containers on Sunday night for my upcoming shifts, labeled them clearly with my name, and by Tuesday, 2 were gone. I confronted him casually. "Hey, have you seen my meal containers? The ones with chicken and rice I had in the fridge." He shrugged, not looking up from his phone. "No idea, man. Maybe you ate them and forgot." "I'm pretty sure I didn't eat them in my sleep," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "They were labeled with my name." "Oh, were they? Sorry, I didn't notice. I was really hungry after work and just grabbed something. I'll replace them." I took a deep breath. Mistakes happen, right? No problem. Just please check the labels next time. I prepare those meals specifically for my shifts because I don't have time to cook when I'm working. He nodded, promised to be more careful, and even offered to buy me lunch as an apology. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The following week, I labeled everything in the fridge that was mine with bright red stickers. My milk, my eggs, my meal preps, even my condiments. I also sent him a text reminding him which shelves were mine in the fridge and pantry. I thought I'd made myself crystal clear. 3 days later, I opened the fridge after a grueling 14-hour shift to find half my food gone. The meal prep I'd been looking forward to eating? Gone. The expensive protein shake I'd been saving? Empty container in the recycling bin. Even the leftover pizza I'd been dreaming about during my entire drive home had vanished, with only the empty box left as evidence. I was beyond hungry. I was furious. I marched to his bedroom door and knocked firmly. "Did you eat my food again?" The stuff with the red labels. He opened the door, looking slightly annoyed at being disturbed. "Yeah, sorry about that. I was going to replace it tomorrow." "That's not the point," I said, struggling to keep my voice even. "I explicitly labeled everything. I sent you a text explaining which food was mine. I need that food when I come home from long shifts." "Look," I said, "I'll replace it. What's the big deal? It's just food." "The big deal is that I specifically asked you not to eat my food, and you agreed. I'm too tired to go out and get something now, and there's nothing else in the house." He rolled his eyes. "There's a 24-hour McDonald's down the street." Problem solved. I stared at him, genuinely baffled by his attitude. "That's not the point. The point is respect. Please don't eat food that isn't yours, especially when it's clearly labeled." "Fine, whatever," he said, closing the door in my face. I went to bed hungry that night, seething with resentment. The next day, I bought a mini fridge for my room and a lock for my bedroom door. I thought that would solve the problem, but it just created new ones. He complained about the extra electricity my mini fridge was using. He said it was weird that I locked my bedroom door when I wasn't home. He even had the audacity to suggest that I was being paranoid and territorial. Meanwhile, any food I left in the main fridge continued to disappear, regardless of labels. When confronted, he always had the same excuses. He was hungry. He forgot. He was going to replace it. It was just food. I was overreacting. I tried reasoning with him. I tried getting angry. I tried explaining that when I come home exhausted after a 12-hour shift, the last thing I want to do is discover my dinner has vanished. Nothing worked. What made it even more frustrating was that he never seemed to buy his own groceries. His sections of the fridge and pantry were perpetually empty. He was literally subsisting on my food, despite earning a good salary. After about 2 months of this madness, I reached my breaking point. I'd just worked 3 night shifts in a row, was running on fumes, and opened the fridge to find that he'd eaten an entire lasagna I'd made. A lasagna that was supposed to last me for several meals. There was a single square left, with a post-it note saying, "Sorry, this was amazing. I'll buy you one from the store tomorrow." Store-bought lasagna is not the same as homemade lasagna that took me 2 hours to prepare. And I knew from experience that his promise to replace my food was empty. That's when I decided I needed a creative solution, something that would drive home the point that actions have consequences. I went to the grocery store the next day and bought ingredients for a new batch of meal preps. Chicken, rice, vegetables, and a secret ingredient, laxative powder. Not a dangerous amount, just enough to cause significant discomfort and multiple trips to the bathroom. To be clear, I wasn't trying to poison him. I just wanted to teach him a lesson about taking things that don't belong to him. I prepared the meals, mixing the laxative into the sauce, and stored them in containers with my usual labels. Property of my name. Do not eat. Then I left for my shift, setting up a small camera in the kitchen, pointed only at the fridge, not at any private areas, to capture the inevitable theft. Sure enough, when I checked the footage later that night, I saw him open the fridge, take out one of my containers, examine the label, shrug, and heat it up in the microwave. He ate the entire thing while watching TV. I came home from my shift to find him looking miserable, making frequent trips to the bathroom. He didn't connect his predicament to the stolen meal until I casually mentioned, "By the way, I noticed another one of my meals is missing. Just so you know, I've been adding medication to my food because of my digestive issues. It's pretty strong stuff, not meant for people with normal digestive systems." The look on his face was priceless. Horror, realization, and embarrassment all mixed together. You put stuff in your food? And you didn't warn me? I labeled it clearly as mine and repeatedly asked you not to eat it. I replied calmly. Why would I need to warn you about medication and food that isn't for you and that you promised not to eat? That's messed up, he said between grimaces. You could have just talked to me. I did. Multiple times. You ignored me. He spent the rest of the night in the bathroom. The next morning, he announced he was moving out. He claimed I had created a hostile living environment and that what I did was practically poisoning him. I didn't argue. I simply reminded him that he had signed a 6-month lease and was only 3 months in. He could leave, but he'd still be responsible for his portion of the rent until I found a replacement. Keep your rent money, he spat. I'm not staying another night in this apartment. True to his word, he packed his essentials that same day and was gone within 24 hours, leaving most of his furniture behind. He blocked my number and all social media. Through a mutual acquaintance, he arranged to have friends pick up the rest of his things while I was at work. I felt a fleeting moment of guilt about the laxative, but it was overshadowed by the relief of having him gone. I found a new roommate within 2 weeks, someone who respects boundaries and asks before taking anything that isn't theirs. Looking back, I realize I could have handled the situation differently. Maybe involved the landlord, drawn up a more formal roommate agreement, or been more assertive from the beginning. But after months of having my concerns dismissed and my clearly labeled food stolen, I was at my wit's end. Was my solution extreme? Maybe. But it worked, and I don't have to worry about coming home to an empty fridge anymore. The new roommate and I get along great. We occasionally share meals by choice, not because one of us is stealing from the other. And I haven't had to use my mini fridge or bedroom lock in months. As for my former roommate, I heard he moved in with another friend from his workplace. I can only hope he learned his lesson about respecting other people's property. If not, I feel sorry for his new roommate. For anyone dealing with a similar situation, try all the reasonable approaches first. Clear communication, labels, separate storage spaces. But if all else fails and you're desperate, well, I'm not recommending my approach, but I can't deny its effectiveness. Sometimes people only learn when their actions have immediate, uncomfortable consequences. Just to be clear, though, I made sure the amount of laxative wasn't dangerous, just uncomfortable. I'm in healthcare, so I knew what I was doing. Don't try this if you don't know what you're doing, because actually poisoning someone is a crime, and this was more of a gray area that I wouldn't want to have to explain in court. At the end of the day, all I wanted was to enjoy the food I paid for and prepared, especially after long, exhausting shifts. I don't think that was too much to ask. And now, finally, I have a peaceful living situation where I don't have to worry about my dinner disappearing. Sometimes you have to get creative to solve a problem that seems unsolvable through conventional means. And for what it's worth, that lasagna really was amazing. I just wish I'd been the one to enjoy it.